and welcome to today's episode of Piano TV. I'm Allysia, your host, and today I'm going to share with you the things that I would recommend you know before you get to a grade 1 level piano. So we're going to talk about the preparatory level, everything that entails, and I'm going to share with you a PDF download which you can find linked below with basically all of the requirements I would expect a general student to know before they get into a grade 1 level. I wanted to make materials available for self-study, and the reason that this all came about is I'm currently finishing up registration for a new Complete Piano Path Level B class, which is for progressing beginners. Basically, Prep B is right preceding grade 1. So this is where my head's been at, and I've been putting together a final exam for the current CPP B class, which is just wrapping things up now. So this is where my head's at. This is kind of the things that I've been thinking about anyway. And I thought for those of you out there who are self-studying, this might be a useful resource for you so you have a sense of, are you checking all the boxes that you need to be checking before you get to a grade 1 level? It helps you assess your level and so on. And registration for the class, if you want to kind of learn these concepts in action with us, with a group, and with live feedback and all of that, you can just check out the link below, but registration will end on Saturday, October 23rd. Just couldn't remember what day of the week that was. In today's video, we are going to talk about what the preparatory level is and what it entails. We're going to talk about when you know you're ready to move on from a preparatory level into a grade 1 level, and just basically a full account of all the different concepts you need to know for stepping into that grade 1 level. So let's get started. All right, so what is the preparatory level of piano? Well, like most of us who go to primary school, kindergarten, grade 1, etc., there is a learning block before grade 1. So grade 4 isn't the absolute basis square one. You know a few things before you get to grade 1 in primary school, and the same is true in music as well. Now, just for context, it's official music school bodies that use this terminology. That was my phone. So you have the RCM, you have the ABRSM, and so on, that basically use grade levels. And for all of them, grade 1 is not a complete beginner. There's a whole preparatory stage that usually takes 1 to 2 years beforehand to complete, where you learn all the basics, and we'll talk about exactly in detail what those basics are. But I think one thing that tends to happen with adult students especially is perhaps your physical dexterity. Your mind is a little bit ahead of your physical dexterity. So some people, since they understand a lot of the concepts at a preparatory level, race ahead and skip a lot of the foundational stuff and a lot of the basics, which can hurt their progress in the long run. So I really think it's useful to spend at least 6 months, but way better if it's a year. And for some people, it's even longer than that before going to a grade 1 level. So a few ways to check if you are ready for grade 1. Number 1, are you able to learn a piece like Clementi's Arietta, like we talked about on the channel very recently? So I'll leave the link for that, but you can check out that video and learn the piece if you want. If you can learn that piece quite well, to let's say about 80% competency within a month or less, then I'd say that's probably a good indicator that you'd be capable of doing grade 1 material. I would expect the average student to take somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks to get pretty good at that particular piece of music, just depending on how much time they have available to practice. And if that piece seems like a real stretch, or you really have to grind it out for an hour or for a month, and it's still not quite where it is, you might want to spend a little bit more time with foundation. So just use a piece like a Prep B piece, which that is, to gauge if you're ready to cross over into grade 1 material. Next way to gauge if you're ready for grade 1 is, have you been playing piano for at least around a year? Now, I know before I said 6 months absolute minimum. That would be for like the extremely speedy student. It's for kids. I get them in preparatory level before grade 1 for at least 2 years. So for adults, I try to do it in 1 year. So when I teach Complete Piano Path A and B, both of those different classes are each 5 months. So my approach is to spend a year at the preparatory level before moving on to grade 1 material. That's a little fast for some people. It's just right for others. We start with basic physical skills, which at this point basically just, do you know how to sit at the piano? Do you have good posture? Are you able to keep your fingers on the keys? Are your wrists dipping? Are you able to sit in the right position? And do you know your finger numbers? The other thing is hand position. This is something that method books explore a lot. Like, have you plunked down in C position, G position, F position, that kind of thing. That's not super important. That's not like a mandatory thing. Not everyone goes through that with method books, but just something to think about. Next, we've got a knowledge of the piano and the piano keys itself, and this basically just means keyboard geography. Are you able to quickly and easily identify all of the different letters on the keyboard? And this includes accidentals like sharps and flats and things like that as well. Hand positions, again, have you worked with C position, G position, F position? I kind of just put this in a couple different spots, but it's what we already just talked about. Next is note and rhythm reading. So do you know pretty much all the main note values? So this is starting from a whole note, half note, dotted half note, quarter notes, dotted quarter notes. You need to know eighth notes, dotted eighth notes, and all the way up to 16th notes and all of their equivalent rests. Would you be able to identify them? Would you be able to figure out how to count them? We also have pretty much every time signature. There's a lot of time signatures that we don't cover in the preparatory level, but these are the main ones. 4/4, 3/4, 2/4, and then 6/8 and 3/8 as well. I like to talk about metronome use. Are you able to use it? This doesn't mean are you a master of using the metronome, but have you explored it? Are you able to follow it somewhat, even if it's not super easy for you? All notation. So this means being comfortable to read music all across the staff from basically a C2 to a C6. Now, that's not to say you should be incredibly fluent. Like if you're looking at a ledger line note, maybe it takes you a little while to figure out, but you do need to be able to read music, even if you're not like immediate with it. Fluency with notation comes with a lot of practice and a lot of time. So you're not necessarily going to be at that point right now, but can you at least figure it out? Intervals up to an eighth. So can you identify seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths? Again, you don't need to be lightning fast at this, but you do need to be able to do it. Key signatures, we'll talk about these a little bit more in future sections. Basic syncopation. Do you at least have a concept of what syncopation is, and have you played at least one piece with a syncopated rhythm? For example, we do this in week 20 in Complete Piano Path B. And then just simple formatting. Do you know what repeat signs look like? Have you done a first and second ending kind of situation? Basic just song and piece format stuff. Next is, what's your fluency with expressive elements on the piano? Dynamics and terms. So this is, again, doesn't mean you need to be a master of all these different dynamics, but if you see a pianissimo symbol on your music or a fortissimo symbol in your music and pretty much everything in between, including crescendos, diminuendos, do you know what they are? Do you know what they're called? And do you know what they do? Ritardando is an expressive element that we use a little bit in the preparatory level. Phrasing, do you understand slurs and slur markings? Again, even if you're not a master of it, do you know what it means? And do you kind of have the gist of how to do it? Do you know how to use the syncopated pedal technique? This is something that, like phrasing, takes a lot of practice, but could you basically do it at this point? Do you know the difference between straight eighths and swing eighths? Kind of like swing rhythm, straight rhythm. Even if you're not perfect at it, can you kind of figure out the difference, or could you explain the difference? And other expressive elements like accents, staccatos, tenutos, staccattissimos, are you able to identify these in the music and have the gist, know the gist of how to play them? Now, I just want to pause for a second because we're going to keep going. There's a lot more stuff. You might be thinking, wow, this is a lot of stuff. It's like all the elements of music. Yeah, you at a basic level, when you get to grade 1, you should be familiar with all of the elements of music. You should have seen all of these elements like accents and phrases, dynamics. You should have seen this in a lot of music that you've been learning up till this point. So you might be thinking, okay, well, what is there left to learn past a preparatory level? What do you do at a grade 1 level? We basically do a lot more of this with increasing layers of complexity. So you'll continue to see a lot of accents, and you'll continue to work with phrases, and you'll continue to work with dynamics, but the music itself is going to get little by little more difficult, and you need to understand these core concepts before you move forward. Next is chords. Now, a lot of these concepts related to chords are things that I feel like my students generally need to work for quite a bit, even past a preparatory level. So for example, inverting chords. This is something that we dabble with in a preparatory level. We develop a basic understanding of it, but you might not be able to invert chords quickly or easily, or be able to recognize an inverted chord immediately. This is something that's going to take continual practice that you'll keep working on with your technique exercises and stuff like that. Same with using Roman numerals, same with playing the tonic, subdominant, and dominant seventh chords. Again, these are things that you should have experienced multiple times, but you might not be like might not be able to give a lecture at a university about this kind of stuff. You should have explored various chord patterns like solid chords, broken chords in different time signatures, 1, 3, 5, 8, etc. Do you understand major and minor chords? And at this point in the game, it's really useful if you know all the major triads and all the minor triads on white keys. There are black key ones as well, and that adds another 5, but we're kind of just looking at the 7 major and 7 minor triads. Do you understand how to build a 7 chord, and do you understand how to play dominant 7th chords in a few consistent keys? So like a few of the beginner keys, like the key of C, the key of G, that kind of thing. Have you explored diminished chords? We do that in one lesson in our CPBB course. So the chord section, like I said, this is kind of heavy duty theory. So I don't expect a student at this level to be a master of this at all, but they will have at least explored these ideas, because these are not going to be brand new ideas at a grade 1 level. They're just going to be ideas that we deep dive into further. Technique. So one mistake that I've talked about on this channel a lot that people make is doing a lot of different scales and all that, and going really heavy on the technique in the early days. No reason to do this. Let me clarify. You want to learn 5-finger scales in all 7 major keys. So like the like white key 5-finger scales. Bonus points if you can also do the 5 black key ones. I think either one is fine. But just understanding 5-finger scales as nice, simple technique exercises. We've already talked about various touches, so this would be like staccato, accents. Are you able to execute the sound of those? And then a few 1-octave scales at this level. So short scales, one hand, you're not doing them hands together. So we have C, D, F, and G major, and then we have A, D, and E natural minor, and then A harmonic minor. These are the ones. This is it in terms of full scales that I would expect my students to know and hopefully have memorized at this stage. They would understand the difference between harmonic and natural minor scales, hopefully somewhat. But this is something that'll be hit home a lot in upcoming grades, like grade 1, 2, 3. So a lot of these concepts are just going to get repeated and hammered home over and over again. Chromatic scales we've experimented with in short form, so maybe not full octave chromatic scales, but the gist of how to play them. And then cross-hand arpeggios. The main key signatures that we work with in this early level are C major and the relative A minor, G major and the relative E minor, D major and the relative B minor, and then F major and the relative D minor. Nothing really past this point. This is keep it to pretty simple key signatures. And in more complex music and in future music, grade 1 and beyond, you'll start to explore all the other different key signatures, but I like to keep it to the simple ones in the early days. And finally, just other theory concepts. So do you understand how to build a major scale? Like, do you know the pattern of whole tones and semitones? Do you understand what relative major and minor keys are? And could you figure that out? Do you know what binary form is? Do you know what a canon is, or 2-part writing? Do you understand the terms tonic and dominant? Do you know the format of 12-bar blues? Now, again, all of these are just going to get repeated over and over in upcoming grades. So it's not like you're going to learn how to build a major scale at the preparatory level and then forget it forever. This is something that you're going to be reviewing over and over again in upcoming years. Same with things like canons and inventions and 2-part writing. It's not something to learn now and then just be done with it forever. You're going to be learning how to play canons and learning how to play inventions in many years, all the way up to the advanced level when you're doing Bach. Binary form. We're going to be reviewing binary form every time we learn a piece in binary form. But you'll have tried all of this stuff, or I would have recommended that you've tried all of this stuff, have a working knowledge of all this stuff, so that when you come to it later in grade 1 or beyond, it's not going to be a brand new concept. It's going to be something you've worked with, even if it's not something that you've mastered. And there it is. Remember that the PDF list of the concepts that we've talked about is available for you to download and use at your leisure. I hope you find this helpful on your piano journey. And don't forget to sign up for the Complete Piano Path for B course if you want to go through these concepts just with a group and more personal instruction and, weekly assignments and checklists and all that kind of stuff if you feel like you would appreciate the extra help. I only open these classes once every 6 months or so. So this is the B class that's open. So if you've been playing for about 6 months to a year, somewhere in that ballpark, it might be right for you. Check it out in the bottom, because we are only going to be open for a few more days and then it's going to be closed for the next 6 months. I am starting a brand new grade 1 level class coming up soon here. So you can stay tuned for that. This should be within the next couple of months. So I'll keep you posted. Thank you for watching today's video, and I'll catch you in the next one.